to seek for their rights. This is really why this station is about and is encapsulated by the caption Giving Light to Life. So let's talk to Olumide Lawal. Olumide, we are discussing the topic new media, changing times, unchanging values. How does that speak to you, Olumide?
Yeah, I don't know if you can hear me clearly, but I could. It's a bit
Yeah.
faint, but you can hear me clearly. Yeah. Okay. Once again, thank you very much, and congratulations. Yeah, new media. Basically, we live in changing times. We live in a very fast-paced world right now, where everything is determined and determined by how the media portray them. The social media has changed our landscape. It has changed the way we see life. It has defined what we what is reality and what is not reality. So for me, the new media is both a positive vibe and also, if not properly managed, could be a negative vibe. But for me, I think it's very important for us to leverage on the positives of the new media in terms of how do we begin to define our values? How do we begin to portray our values through the current reality? Because right now, uh, there seems not to be a disparity between what is good and what is bad. It's all about perception. But certain values ought to remain unchanged. We can adapt to meeting the new reality. We can adapt to changing times. We can adapt to being on the cutting edge of technology. But certain values must remain the same: justice, fairness, equity, human sanctity. All these things are ideals that we must cherish, despite our current reality, despite what the media portrays them to be. So, for me, what I would just say is that we have to consciously leverage on the positives of new media as we begin to communicate to people and also to our culture. We must not be defined by the new media in terms of our value system. We need to portray our value system through the various media platforms that we have. So let me start by just laying that foundation, and I will give the other guests opportunity to speak to it. Then we'll pick it up from there.
Thank you very much, Olumide, for that. I'll hang in with you for a bit while our technical team try to connect with Leah from Kenya. I think we can hear
Uh,
at the background. Leah, do you? Oh, wonderful. Thank you, Leah. Now,
yes.
early in the day, we had an opportunity to listen to Chief Richard Umaru here at House of Justice, and he spoke about how the ruling class have set the foundation for what the values should be. As we speak about this, I think about it in terms of across countries and across continents, because I'm sure that this perhaps is a reality in Kenya as well. And he said that ruling class determine the values of the people. So because the politicians who emerge as leaders are not held to high standards, they run life the way they think it should be run. And then the people begin to see them and want to copy those lives. Would you say that that is a reality or a farce?
I agree. I think it's a reality, and sometimes it's unfortunate because now, depending on the study, on the character of our leaders, then it filters down and dictates everything else that other people follow. So I agree with that statement. But when the thing that stands out for me with new media with regard to that statement is that now we have avenues to call out such bad behavior, if at all, otherwise would not have been seen. Now we have where, as a person, all you need is a phone. And with that phone, you can cause nationwide, countrywide, whatever space that you're in, to have some effects on the justice system and seeking out anything that is improper. And the reason I say this, I can give an example, like in Kenya. We've had just something similar to the Me Too movement that began on social media. We had the same thing some years back on My Dress, My Choice. And it all began by someone documenting harassment of a woman in a public service vehicle by the town.
Yeah.
And it caused a nationwide rise, and we had demonstrations, and we had all the freedoms to be secured for women to have safe space in their countries. So in as much as you can have a patriarchal leadership or leadership that is trying to pass on values that suit them, but do not suit the country, then you have an avenue as a citizen who believes in the values out against such injustices. So to me, as I agree with Olumide, you should just, we need to leverage on the positives of social media and new media, as it has a lot of potential to change dynamics that otherwise would not have been easily changed.
All right. I do not know if Zainab has joined us from Gambia already. Zainab, are you there? All right, we're hanging a bit for Zainab. I'm back here in the studio. I have Rindy Jacob here with us. And I just want to ask you, Rindy, about the power of the office of the citizen. When we speak about it in terms of power relations, the perception is always that those who are in government, they are at the higher position, and those who are, as it were, the followers are in the lower position. How do we ensure that there is power balance in terms of demanding what is right and what is just in any society?
Okay, let me just, first of all, let me also say congratulations, and then it's a pleasure to meet the other guests wherever you are. I'm really pleased to be with you here. And you see, my approach to it, as Olumide has said, that we should leverage on the positive side of the media and the value system, especially in Africa. Africa has always been a very cultural society that has imbibed values, which ordinarily is what we should all stand for. And the democratic system has made sure that we as followers are supposed to be the rulers over the leadership.
Yeah.
But somehow, some way, because of the fact that society has also lost its value, you understand, we have now produced leaders that are valueless.
Yeah.
So of course, being in a position of authority and power, what they tend to transmit down to the followership now are values which are more or less to the service of the ruling class, not to the service of the majority of the citizens.
Yeah.
Somehow, some way, because of the loss of our value systems, we have found ourselves putting into position leaders who also are without any level of value. So of course, someone who has come in without any sense of value will only transmit something that is without value. So somehow, some way, that has robbed the citizenship of the powers that they have to determine how and what happens in their society and the values which their society upholds. But as Olumide said, we must leverage on the positives and make sure that we go back into our society and affect the value system. And I believe it will have a ripple effect on the value system of the leadership.
Oh, okay. That's quite deep. Still hanging in and waiting for Zainab Lowe Balde to join us from Gambia. Zainab, if you can hear us, we are trying to get across to you. But back to Olumide Lawal in the US. Olumide, we are interested in justice as value for people. And the perception that we got earlier on in the public discourse that went on here at House of Justice in Kaduna, Nigeria, is that justice has become something for the highest bidder. And there was someone who gave an account, and this, I guess, is something you can relate with because, you know, you were first a politician before you joined the World Bank, where you presently are. And he spoke about how he was a first-time court user, and he had just participated in elections that he got a popular vote and which he believed was stolen. And by the time he got to the courts, that they were demanding for money to give to the judge, which he found quite ridiculous. And he feels pain that he lost the mandate that belongs to him because he didn't have the money. Now, and we hear people tell about their very terrible experiences in the court system. However, as much as this may be their reality, there's also the fact that the court of law is supposed to be a court of justice. How do you relate these two disparities?
Thank you, Barrister Gloria. Very interesting question. You know, it was Mahatma Gandhi that said something very profound. He said, politics without principle would definitely lead to destruction. And, you know, the justice system ought to be the last arbiter of the common man. When we get to a point where justice becomes a tool in the hands of politicians, then we are on a fast lane towards spiraling downward as a people. You know, and politics was stolen because you couldn't play ball in the justice system. Then for me, we have lost the essence of what uh, 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 leadership and governance ought to be. I can relate to that because I have people around me who are also victims of the insights you just shared right now. I can only imagine how far we can go as a people who begin to operate like this. The justice system ought to be independent of any form of political interference. When politicians hijack the justice system, then we have lost that significant ideal of what our human existence is based on. So what we need to do right now with technology is that technology has become an equalizer, in the sense that, as Leah mentioned, you know, how there was a movement started in Kenya because of a woman that was, you know, maltreated, and, you know, it went viral. I think it's important for us also to see how we can start championing our cause through the new media. When an election, all you need to do is to make sure that you, you know, there are a lot of sophisticated gadgets right now for election monitoring. Your case, you know, live reportage of happenings. And even the people themselves will now be the judge when they understand that, okay, this is how many votes was cast, you know, and you actually won the election. And if the judiciary now says otherwise, then it now becomes an issue of global attention. But it is very important, as much as possible, to protect our judiciary. I know you do a lot of work, Barrister Gloria, on, you know, in this front, how you defend people who are defenseless, so to speak, you know. And I also understand the fact that you have been a champion in the civil society movement in Nigeria. So how do we begin to use our voice to champion this conversation around the need for effective justice system? The justice system of that we have lost the essence of our governance, and I don't know where else to determine our humanity. Our values must remain unchanged. It must remain unchanged. So it's unfortunate what we see in our part of the world right now. Can you still hear me?
Yes, we can hear you clearly.
Okay, it's unfortunate what we see in our part of the world right now, where justice has become a tool in the hand of politicians. As much as possible, the judiciary needs to be separate entity. The principle of separation of powers must be absolutely adhered to when it comes to judicial processes and adjudication of justice as much as possible. Yeah.
All right. I head to Leah in Kenya. Leah, it is an indictment to our profession that we can have people talk about corruption in the judiciary. But this is the reality in many places. The fact that people cannot even understand why the court will exist and create a situation where litigants are caught between the devil and the deep blue sea. But again, we also kind of have in quote, a sense of not wanting to address what is the sacred, if you want to say. We know when we practice in the courts about certain judges that have issues with their character, and which also dovetails into the kind of judgments that they churn out. And yet, you find either in the bar associations or even the judicial council that the kind of vigor that should go into addressing this is not the kind of vigor that we see. You have a thief in the judiciary and a thief outside, but the thief outside is treated with much more force than the one in the judiciary, which is the sacred place. And I think that a conversation like this afternoon presents an opportunity for us to say, look, we have to be able to talk about these things. So back to you, Leah. How do we begin to ensure that the new media pushes for values even in the judicial space?
Thank you, Gloria. You know, when you speak about certain things, they just touch my heart. And for me, when I think of justice and people, especially who are supposed to be the arbiters, it's not just the execution of whatever issue specifically it is, but it's also in the perception of justice. So as a justice actor, anything, the appearance of any impropriety, whether rightly so or not, is unacceptable. And for me, this is why I think, like in Kenya, when we did our new constitution in 2010, and we had the separation where we have Judicial Service Commission that is supposed to deal with all things justice system. But until now, we still find that you have politicians and the political class still trying to hijack that. We have a recent issue that is now standing, and we've had some of our members in the Law Society go to court. For example, the Judicial Service Commission that is independent has selected judges, and they've taken them through a whole process of vetting and analyzing and looking to their background, and forwarded the same to the executive, who's the president for appointment. But the president has declined to do so. There's views that he's declined to do so because of certain political affiliations and certain interests that could be there, which may be true or not. But you see, it again, it takes away from the aspect of separation and perception of fairness that we expect with a judicial service system. And when we look back as a country, I think one of our landmark idea is when our judiciary actually recalled an election. This was a very big deal. And we know there was a lot that played with the new media and social media, particularly because from wherever we were able to see what was happening in other countries, in other counties, in other parts of the country. You're able to follow the calculations that are going out in terms of election numbers, votes, and things. You're able to see there's police brutality in certain areas. You're able to see through social media if people are being blocked from accessing voting and polling stations. All these things come with the new media, which we would not have been able to do before. But you see, because of this, then it even becomes very difficult for political class to try and actually interfere with processes of justice. But as I said again, for me, it's not just an issue of doing the right thing, but the appearance as a judicial system, you must always be above reproach. So your appearance and perception should always be key. This and then not just in Kenya, I believe also in other countries. And one of the guests alluded to it, is the issue of weaponizing of the justice system, where now the executive takes the justice system, and because they don't like certain people either in the opposition or of certain a different school of thought, you're taken through all these cases of corruption, I don't know what is happening, and things. The justice system is now being used as a tool to punish those that the political class does not agree with. And for me, the reason I'll always say we go back to the new forms of media is that by new forms, we are able to actually push. We do not have to sit back and wait for the mainstream media to come and tell us what to think and what to do. But we are able to actively participate in calling out for justice in these forums, whether it is in hashtag, whether it's in calling out for demonstrations, demonstrations, whether it's in petitions, whatever mechanism we use with the new media, we are able to call out and actually stand as a citizenry by ourselves and say, no, we don't think what you're doing is correct. We don't think the president's performance in this matter is proper. We don't think as a justice, as a judge of a court, a high court, Supreme Court, or whatever court, you are allowed to behave in a certain manner. So I will always go back as, to what Olumide said, the positives. There's always so much positive when you can get people, the citizenry, to perform and to be part of the processes and participate using the new media spaces that we have right now. Thank you, Gloria.
Yeah, but just before I let you out on that, there is an expression that says that when people define a situation as real, it becomes real in its consequence. And the issue of perception of corruption in judiciary is a germane issue, because for many people who haven't even used the courts, just a conversation like this could be such a dampener. But it's also the reality that you have so many just men and women in the judiciary who constantly churn out the right judgments and who do justice according to the law. Leah, is it the case that we have not been able to amplify the good stories and so the bad stories have drained out what is right, or is this really our reality?
Okay. It could be possible that we've not amplified the good stories, but from where I'm sitting, the judiciary should always have good stories, because that is where they are. We should not expect that the good stories are less. The expectation is that you're always on the right path, so you're always above reproach. And that is why, from where I sit, you get to see highlighting of the bad stories, because it's not an expectation that we have for our arbitrators and our arbiters in the country. So in as much as we can say maybe we are not highlighting the good stories, I believe that shouldn't be the case. What we need, and this is why we go back, and highlighting the bad stories is not because we want to paint a system as bad, but we want to hold the system accountable. And you know, it's not, and the thing that we look about in corruption, it's not just stories of judges paid for judgments, but it's even in the institutionalization of the corruption itself, where me as a lawyer, when I go into the registry to look for my file, I can't find it. Somehow it has disappeared, and I have to pay a clerk or whoever so that my file is found. You understand? So these are not the things that we expect. And for me, one of the things I'm very proud, our justice system, our judiciary recently digitalized its processes. We could thank COVID, but I think it's been a long time coming, because we hope that now these kinds of things will actually reduce that perception. So to me, it's not an issue of highlighting good things, especially I hold the judiciary at very high standards. So it's not, I expect all the time you sit there as an officer of the court, as a judge, as a lawyer, you're always coming out with good things. So anytime there's a bad issue or an issue of corruption, that should be highlighted so that it can be stopped in its tracks immediately, and not to sweep things under the rugs.
All right, thank you very much, Leah. Back here in the studio with me, I'm joined by Grace Sim Auta, a lawyer as well, who works in the development sector. Thank you for joining us, Grace. Leah has made a huge point about the fact that it's not really about amplifying the bad stories, but the fact that it should never be mentioned that there is corruption in the judiciary or in the legal space. As you would probably know, the issue of corruption in the sacred places, like in the spaces where lawyers occupy and in the spaces where judges occupy, is such a huge issue. How do we move the physician to heal himself?
In addressing this, in every situation we find ourselves, like earlier on, we're talking about accountability. And before you hold anybody accountable, you should hold yourself accountable.
Yeah.
Same with us as judicial officers. Yes, we know that the government has, we talk about separation of powers, we know that it's something that is seen just on paper, looking at our space here in Nigeria.
Yeah.
But that's notwithstanding, we also have judicial officers that have refused to give in to the whims of the executive. And that's where, you know, physician healing yourself comes in. So it's about you. Ask yourself, what legacy am I setting for myself? What do I hope to leave for the future of the judiciary when I leave? Is it just about working for the government? Is it just about doing what the government wants? Governments come and go. So whoever is making you do whatever you're doing, know that that person will go. And you were not put there by that person. Officers come and go. Your office is there. And what legacy have you left for the judiciary? So now, looking at this, I think lawyers, judges there really needs to be some sort of introspection. We ask ourselves, where did we go wrong? Because it must have started from somewhere, somehow. Where did we go wrong? And how do we take some steps back and then begin to do things right? Okay, let's look at the NBA now, the Nigerian Bar Association. Our elections are ongoing right now. And you speak with different people, different lawyers, even people that are outside, like I was talking to somebody, people that are not even lawyers are so much interested in the elections going on right now. I've never seen this much interest in the elections of the Nigerian Bar Association like we have right now. Because even people are seeing what is going on in the judiciary, and the judiciary being the hope of the common man, the common man has lost that hope. And people are hoping to see some changes. And that's why everybody is looking to see, okay, who comes on board and what are you coming to do differently? So we know that there's so much that we have to do as judicial officers. There's so much that the lawyer has to do. There's so much that the judges have to do. So now it's time for real introspection. We begin to sit and ask ourselves questions. It's not just about the executives using you to do whatever, or the executives, going above and beyond their own powers, but you yourselves, what are you doing wrong, and what should you do to get things to be done right? So we have to get to that level. And until we get to that level of beginning to address things personally and also as a body, then we'll be able to get the executives to also not to, or rather we'll be able to get the judicial officers not to dance to the tune of the executives. Because it has to get to that level where if you make yourselves available to be used for illegality, you'll surely be used for illegality. But if you make a stand, and you don't just make a stand, you make people, you don't just come out to say, no, I'm not going to do any level of, I'm not going to be part of any illegality. I'm not going to be used to collect bribes. I'm not going to be used for money laundering or whatever it is. Your actions should show that. Because if you give certain, okay, Gloria, sorry, I'm going to use you as an example. The Kaduna State, you've had so much, the Kaduna State government has had so many issues with you. Now look at the government. The government cannot come meet you to do some certain things that you know that are illegal or that go contrary to your beliefs as a person and as a lawyer. But there are some lawyers that they could use to do that. But they cannot meet to do that. Why? Because they already know your ethics. They know your principles. And we have to get to that level where the executives will see that, they cannot use the judicial officers like that. Where the executives will know that they cannot interfere with the appointment of judges or the removal of judges without going through the NJC. We have to get to that level where the executives will begin to see lawyers, the judiciary, for whom they are. And we cannot make the executives do that without we working on ourselves. So it starts from us.
Thank you very much, Grace. Back to you, Rindi Darkun. We are talking about the new media changing times and changing values. And for most people out there in society, they feel like the age of value is gone. And this conversation is set up to say, no, we have to think about values, we have to think about ethics, we have to think about character, both in national life and private life. Could you speak to that, please?
Okay. The age of values is gone might be sounding like a very hopeless situation. Africa is a society that was built on a lot of cultural and traditional values. So, and along the line, most things that were being done in Africa by individuals, collectively or individually, was within those parameters of values. Growing up, you know that You're not supposed to steal. You're not supposed to tell lies. You're not supposed to do certain things. But then along the line, the society itself lost its way. And as a very learned senior gentleman from Kenya said, that we began to own thieves. We began to own the people who do wrong. For as long as one of them is your relation or you stand in a position to benefit one way or the other, then he wasn't doing wrong. Now, you see, these individuals somehow found themselves into places and positions of authority, that they now had the powers to determine the fate of us collectively. And when somebody has come in through a means that is not credible, in fact, this thing that we're talking about all boils down to one thing: the growth of the institution, called the judiciary. Now, the growth of that institution depends on the individuals that come together to make it the institution it's supposed to be. Now, we must go back and look at the processes of appointments, because politicians, some have found a way of influencing who gets onto the bench. And of course, when that person is there by somebody's doing, he naturally feels compelled to do things in favor of that person, whether or not that person is right. Now, the new media must focus on processes that bring the individuals into the judicial system. In fact, of late, for example, in Nigeria, we have had colleagues that have gone to court because of the nominations of 38 new High Court judges of the FCT, and challenging the fact that most of them were either the children or relations of either some bigwigs or some former justices. And that the automatic effect of that is that merit is outside the door. And the person who comes in on the basis of he is the son of someone is bound to wake up one morning and have a phone call from that someone and say that I need this judgment to go in this favor or the other, or I need you to do this to this person or the other. So sincerely speaking, it's not as if the values have completely eroded. There are still very good lawyers, there are still very good judges out there, but the problem we're having is that the system that brings in people into the judiciary. Now, my sister here just said something about the MBA elections in Nigeria going on, and there's so much interest. The truth is that the politician is the first person that has realized the use of perception. The politician realized the use of perception, so he realized that if he puts out a story out there in a particular manner, the majority of people are bound to believe it. That is why the traditional media is suffering from one particular thing, that almost every newspaper or radio station is owned by a politician. The reason is because they realize that if they churn out these stories in a particular way, as you said, if you keep on saying it, even if it is not real, it becomes a reality. So now the new media is a new opportunity for everyone. It's not a media that is controlled by somebody in government. The space is open. It's not by frequency. Now you can bring to the fore a lot of issues that are affecting the society. For example, during the COVID lockdown, we know the role the new media played in exposing a lot of rape cases, a lot of abuse cases in this country. So values, yes, but the solution will still lie in going back to the society and looking at what do we teach. Even the education curriculum. These days, you go to a faculty of law. Yeah, somebody is trying to be a lawyer, and his parents are paying money for him to be passed, and he's going to come and be a lawyer, and tomorrow he's going to be a judge. And you're expecting that, okay, somebody who came in because his exams were being paid for, and you're expecting that tomorrow he's not going to collect money and give a judgment one way or the other. He definitely owes the person that paid the money all his life. You understand? So sincerely speaking, it's a whole thing that has permeated through the whole thing. The societal values dropped. The education we're putting out there it has lost its value and credibility. Now, these are the same people, they graduate and find themselves in position of authority. And at the end, of course, we're expecting a miracle. It's as good as, of course, carrying some group of baby goats and giving it to the hyena to keep. And then when you wake up in the morning and see some of them missing, you see that you didn't know it was going to happen. It was definitely going to happen.
Yeah. It was just a matter of time. Thank you, Zainab Balde Lowe, for joining us from Gambia. Oh, okay. Zainab is still trying to join us, but I can see the highlights there. Zainab, if you can hear us, we are looking forward to hearing from you. I can see your feature up on the screen. But back to Olumide, Rindy here has made a very important point, which was incidentally something also that was raised in the early morning discussion. And the guest speaker of the Ignite address was talking about how we have become a society where parents will pay for their children to pass exams and then tell their children not to cheat. Can we talk about the internal contradictions of the way our society is set up in the light of the fact that the new media allows each and every one of us to set an agenda for positivity?
Yes. It just it drove the point home, in his of intent. Every human have this natural predilection to deviant behavior when there is no justice, when there is no fairness, and when there is no equity. So the idea of creating a society cannot be divorced from our individuality. Talking about as an individual character, as a society institution. How do we begin to build sustainable institutions that can stand the test of time? How do we begin to entrench processes and systems in place that cannot be easily manipulated? And all these things are also premised on who we are as a people. My sister drove home the point of character and leadership. You can't separate who you are from whatever it is that you do. Our personality is exposed when character is just like smoke. You can't hide it for too long. When you have smoke somewhere, that means there is fire somewhere. So even if you're trying to hide it, or you see a pregnant woman that is trying to hide her pregnancy, you can hide it for the first 3 months, but after some time, the pregnancy tells, I can't stay no longer, I have to come out. So for me, I think it's just so very important for us to develop ourselves as individuals. That is what, on a personal level, I've tried to do. One of the things that I do is, you see, we're not perfect, so we can't have a perfect system. But how do we begin to drive, actively, daily towards perfection? What I try to do in my life is that I say, I don't like to make one mistake twice. When I make a mistake once, I don't want to make it again. So in a system, when you have a system and you have fault in that system, how do we correct that anomaly so it doesn't, repeat itself? Let's say something about perception, and I think we need also express the same sentiment. We need to begin to create a system where put down institutions that is void of contradictions. Like, we know where we are going from the start. A system is in place. It's like a mold. When you plug A, you know you're going to get B. So we have to work on ourselves as individuals, translate that values or those ideals and those values into institutionalizing our processes and systems in such a way that manipulation becomes almost impossible. So I think when we get to this point, the idea of justice and fairness and equity becomes automatic process, because nobody wants to be caught in the web. You don't want to be caught in the web because everything is going to be in the transparent process, and the system will definitely catch up with you. Like, we live in the US, for instance, there are certain things you cannot get away with. There are certain things no matter how hard you try, you can, it's just a matter of time. The system will catch you itself. And incidentally, like I said, the new media platform has given every one of us is an equalizer. We can begin to define our own agenda and begin to portray it. So gone were those days where the politicians can sway us. But they can easily see ignorance. Ignorance is something that needs to be fought, head on in our part of the world. Because when you have knowledge without character, it's destructive. Knowledge without character is destructive. So we need to be able to can protect those who are unprotected, that can give justice to the people that deserve to get justice, and that can also equalize opportunities for everybody. By so doing, I believe we will have a functional society. Yeah, thank you.
Thank you, Olumide. Back to you, Leah. There's a high point that I believe Olumide hit in his last intervention. He spoke about the institutionalization of values. And I know that for many of us who went to the university, to any higher institution at all, even our secondary schools, when it was time to graduate, we are told that we have been awarded this degree or this in learning and in character. However, the learning component tends to work out quite well. The character component seems never to be highlighted. How do we elevate that conversation about entrenching values and character in such a way that when we have conversations like this, we will not say, oh, the society is imperfect, but we'll speak about the society from a positive tangent to say, oh, the society is perfect, but we have this and this challenge, so that the main subtext is about positivity and not negativity.
Wow, I think it's very important. But this is where I go back to the benefits, advantages of new media. One of the things that studies has shown is that the new media has really played a key role in shaping our attitudes. And some of our attitudes, you know, they come from character or from learning and things like that. So there's a lot that goes into how we exhibit our character by the things that we see, the things that are around us, the things that we experience. So for me, I think a classic example that I usually fall back on is what is happening in the US. The US had always been seen as a senior country in terms of democracy, having advanced protections on human rights, having done all these things. And a lot of the time, we would always fall back on the characters of the people. And there's always the famous line that, you know, we as Americans, not me, but the Americans, but it's something that you see even on television, on sitcoms, on TV movies. And it always seemed like it was going back to the issue of the character of the people in the US. Now, fast forward now in 2020, we have seen in the past, like just in the span of 3 or 4 years, the erosion of everything that was shown or presented as the ideal in terms of character for the citizenry in the US. We can see all the things their leadership has changed. I recall actually after their election of their current president, one of the jokes we used to make in our country, it might be a little, I used to tell my American friends, now welcome into the third world life. You have just joined third world leadership in the things. When they get shocked about certain actions, you're like, yes, you know, this is how it has been for us here in the third world. And you look back at it, it is actually a perception that's been created in social media. That's why their president is very well known on using the issue of fake news. Why? Because he knows how social media is key in shaping thoughts. We have seen the rise of racism in the US, worse than it had been before. Why? Because that is how the social media has shaped. And now we can now call the things that we are seeing the characters of those people. Might not necessarily be true, and it could be as what Olumide said, the characters were always there but were never highlighted. But it seems like social media has made it so apparent that some of the things we hold dearly are not. But the thing that we cannot argue with is that social media has actually done a lot in shaping attitudes and characters of people. I can use an example also from my country. Very recently, one of our members of parliament was caught on camera shooting a DJ at a club. Like, he was seated, he removed his gun and he shot the DJ, and it was all caught on camera. And this information was circulated on social media. And you could see the anger that the people could face. And it's not like people have not been shot before. I mean, people have been shot since time, but because now it comes to our faces, it actually shapes the attitudes that we have over such things. It shapes how we view what we think are injustices. And the beauty about this and one of the benefits of social media is that because of the anger from the public and the way people actually cried out for justice, it necessitated for the police to actually quickly step into that situation and investigate it. It forced the Office of the Director of Public Prosecutions to put out a statement of what it is they were doing. When the person was taken to court and nothing seemed to move, and now in this era, everyone blames, COVID, and it seemed like justice is not happening, people rose up again. And they complained on social media. It necessitated for the judiciary to actually say, no, we are open, let the DPP do something quickly so that we can get dates. So you see, it actually shapes. It's not that it's a new offense, it's a new crime, but it has brought it to us as a people, and it's so apparent to the wrongdoing that even our consciousness is shocked and we are able to cry out for justice. So for me, in as much as we say, yes, character is inbuilt, I think a lot of what's in our character is shaped by the ideals that that are around us, the people within our spaces, the people we look up to, and the perceptions that we get from all these spaces. And as long as we can use new media to actually influence ideal attitudes, good character, good ideas, some sense of fairness, justice, and morality, then I think it would go a long way in actually having these ideals institutionalized in our processes and our institutions.
Oh, thank you very much. We try to see again if we can connect with Zainab and if she can unmute her mic. I hope that we can connect with Zainab from Gambia before the end of this discussion. And Zainab, if you can hear us, we are trying to connect with you, please. Olumide has indicated that she would need to leave very soon due to the nature of his job. And so perhaps we need to use this opportunity to get across to you, Olumide, to talk about your parting shot in terms of what you demand of our own society, which you belong to.
So I can barely hear you. Are you directing the question to me?
Yes, I am. Yes, I
am. Okay, what's the question? I can barely hear you. Sorry.
But do you hear me now?
Okay, I'll try. Yeah, speak on.
Okay, I'll try. I hope that this connects quite well. But we are asking for what your passing shot is on the need for character and values to shape any society.
Yeah, basically for me, it's all about the education, the platform. For instance, what you are doing right now in House of Justice is what we need most in our part of the world when it comes to spreading the gospel of the need for character development and upholding the values that that will define us as a people in the coming years. We need to use every opportunity we have. Right now, the influencers or celebrities tend to dictate the pace. So how do we, in House of Justice, how do we get celebrities to come on air? How do we get celebrities to come on air? Not just celebrities, but people who represent the ideals that we stand for. Because, for instance, the president of a country may find it difficult to have 1 million followers, but you find a celebrity having like 100 million followers, 50 million followers. So you can imagine whatever that person portray gets to 100 million people. So how do we, in House of Justice, we all of us in House of Justice, how do we ensure that we get people with the right values to come on air to speak about this thing? If a major celebrity tweets or post on the social media that will be speaking in House of Justice on a particular day, you'll be amazed how many millions of people will be glued to their radio station just to hear what he has to say. As much as possible, first thing, internalize and build your own character. Number two, let us have a platform where we can spread this information as much as possible. And let us also see how we can start advocating in terms of our legislation also? How do we become a voice? How do we begin to strengthen the civil society movement to begin to advocate for effective legislation, and not just legislation, but also implementation? I believe if we begin to do this in the long run, we begin to shape what defines us as a people, and in no time we begin to build a system where people can trust again. Because right now there's so much distrust in the system, but we need to build that trust. It takes time to build trust. It's very easy to lose it. It's very easy to lose it, but it takes time to build. So it's going to be a process. It's not going to be like switching on the lights on and off. It's going to take some time. It's going to be a process. We have to start reshaping back, those ideals that help us to become, the citizens or the brothers and sisters that can look out for one another, and a system also that can protect the most vulnerable in society. So that would be my parting shot, and also to wish you all the best. And I'm very positive that this station is going to do us all good, because we need, and thank you for what you're doing in House of Justice. Thank you very much, everyone. It's so nice meeting you. Everybody, Zainab also, you're just joining us. But nice to meet all of you. I wish I could be here more, but I have a very important meeting in 5 minutes. I have to run now. Thank you. I appreciate it. Thank you very much.
Thank you, and bye for now. And welcome, Zainab. We have been trying to reach you. Oh, okay. Oh, I thought so. Oh, okay. Tirnam. All right. Thank you, Tirnam, for joining us from Canada. Hello, Tirnam. Hi. We can see that you're sporting our t-shirt.
Yes.
Amazing. Thank you for joining us.
I'm glad to be here.
Thank you also. But you just joined the conversation, and we are discussing the need for advocacy on character and values as a means of shaping a country. Would you let us into your own thoughts?
I think that this platform is so important, given the values that, or lack of it, that exist within the Nigerian youth. For most of us, the end justifies the means, and you won't even believe how much a lot of people's minds are wired till you sit and talk with them. For instance, when a scammer gets arrested by Interpol, and then you hear people saying, "Oh, but he helps people. He uses his money to do philanthropy. He pays people's fees. He feeds the widows," and that's really it for them, because or they say, "Oh no, focus on the bad politicians. Why are you hammering on a young man who is trying to make a living?" Or for some, they say, "Oh, it's reparations for what white people did to us. They deserve to be scammed for colonizing us." And these are not even jokes. These are how the minds of a large percentage of Nigerian youth works. Like, this is just a peek into their mindset. How much corruption and dishonesty has become a part of our day-to-day lives, and trying to be on the right side is always not the easiest thing to do. You come off as judgmental, as holier than thou, and whatever. And so new media as a tool cannot be, especially an independent platform as this, it's a welcome development, because we need to change the narrative, and we need to help the youth to make better decisions, because the way it stands right now, especially, I think I joined the part where they said a lot of the platforms are owned by politicians, and so of course he who pays the piper dictates the tune. So this level of independence gives a new level to objectivity and having a mind of your own, because you don't need to, you're not paid by anyone, and you get to to decide with the direction that things take. So hopefully, House of Justice Radio and TV is on the right path to shaping the thoughts of Nigerian youth, because it is so much needed. A politician just got released or something from jail, and then he had a standing ovation in his town, and oh, this no, my thief is better than your thief. I don't even know. Everything is just, it's not even supposed to be funny, but it is funny, because depending on which part of the country you come from, you can be excused for your corrupt practices. Again, the end justifies the means. If you steal and then you do a bit of work, okay, that's excusable. So there's a lot of reorientation that needs to be done, and that's why I'm calling on everyone to support House of Justice Radio and TV, because we need all hands on deck to do this, to help the youth to take more informed decisions, because we cannot go further with this same mindset that is already in the hearts of people and a lot of the youth. We cannot make much progress with the way we think. So congrats to House of Justice again, and of course we're always here to support in every way we can. Congratulations.
Thank you very much, dear Norm. Not a lot of time to continue on the issues, but as we try to wrap up, I'll start first with Grace over here. We have had extensive conversation about the need to entrench values and the need to entrench character. Do you think that if we begin to run advocacy campaigns on these issues, that it would go a long way, or do you think it's the demonstration of these values that we want to see that would have more ripple effect?
For me, I'll go with both. Okay. Because the importance of advocacy cannot be overemphasized. You know, a lot of times people do things without realizing what they're doing is wrong. Okay, I'll give an instance of an advocacy project, advocacy I did on a project. You realize some people, you know, we are all products of our environments. If you do not associate people elsewhere, as far as you're concerned, and you do not read extensively, you do not research, as far as you're concerned, what you grew up knowing is the right thing. And until you get to meet people and get to understand, then you realize that there's a lot of unlearning you need to do. Like I read something somebody wrote on Twitter yesterday, a man wrote something, and I read some comments from a lot of men. He said he has learned a lot about women issues on Twitter than he ever knew he would ever learn. And a lot of men came out to say that. And let's look at even the issue of rape that has been going on now, and issue of consent and so many other things. You realize that some men are coming out to ask, oh, so it means I'm guilty of sexual assault. I've assaulted somebody before. But as far as I was concerned, then I didn't know that I was doing that. So you see, and what led to this knowledge? The fact that advocacy led to that knowledge. Okay, the project I worked on was the issue of education, early marriage, you know, and economic empowerment of the adolescent girls. And I met a lot of men that came back and would tell you that they never knew that some actions they took in the past were actually hurting their daughters. For them, they felt they were doing the right thing. But then when you begin to do advocacy and then educate people, then people get to learn. Yes, we know that the practical aspect of it is very, very good. It's very, very good. Very, very important too. But advocacy is also very, very key. There are people that need to hear, and some need to hear it over and over and over again. Some people hear something once and they take it. They unlearn. Unlearning comes easy for some people. But there are some that will need to hear it over and over again and will ask questions and ask questions and question before they actually begin to, you know, take it in. So we cannot rule out advocacy. It's very, very important. And I think that's something that House of Justice have been doing before. And I know that House of Justice really needs to do to have this.
Thank you very much, Grace. Over to you, Leah. In the law books, we always make the quote and say you can't You can't build something on nothing and expect it to stand from the McFoy case. How do you see that as it relates to character and the building of any society?
I think I'll agree with what has been said. There are certain things that are innately human, and there are certain things that we are taught, as we've said, and there are certain things that we need to unlearn. So for us as a society anywhere, I think one of the things that I've noticed, at least in my space, is that there are good people out there. There are really good people who want to do the right thing. They're out there. But because of certain ideals we've held in the society, or stigmatization or harassment, most of the good people have decided to keep quiet. And you can see it in terms of leadership, you can see it in terms of just our peers, anywhere. And you, even in social media, you will see someone will come out and call out someone on something, and everyone goes on the attack. And I think one of the things I liked was watching one of President Obama's clips where he said, it's really is not cool for you to think you can shout at people just on social media and think you can correct. So for me, character is there. We have people who are already good. I think we need to step out of our fear and our anxiety in the small spheres of influence. If we can start there, even if it's just in your family, how are we raising our children to understand what is right or wrong? What do we hold as the ideals of me as Leah? What do I expect of my children? As a parent in a school, how do I expect that school to behave? Or how do I expect them to be imparting knowledge? How do I expect them to look at the things that are injustice or stand for the vulnerable? In our churches, for those who go to churches, in our book clubs, in our anything, whatever space you feel you can be at, all these spaces give us an opportunity to actually build our character, build our values, expand on our thinking and unlearning of things that we were taught that might not be right. So I strongly believe it's an issue of consistency. But one of the other things that I feel also very passionate about is holding people accountable. I think the more you hold people accountable for ills that they've done, the more you persuade the public to actually have trust in the system, whether it's an institution, whether it's the leadership, whether it's our politicians. The more you have people held accountable for offenses, whether big or small, will be very telling in how the society is going to respond to you as a person, as an institution, as a government. So as long we have a very strong aspect of accountability. Yes, I'm really humbled to be in this forum because I have seen the work that you've been doing from the time you were being taken to court. and you're like, you need people who can stand in the gap. Not everyone would have the will. I mean, I always tell people I'm a lawyer, but the day I'll be taken to court, even if it's a traffic offense and I'm not standing in the space where a lawyer stands and I have to stand there on the dock where the accused stands, I will start crying for my mother because it's very, very different. The dynamics change in the same room. But that is what, as a country, we need to see that even if you are believed to be whichever position of society, you can actually stand in that dock of the accused person because you have done something wrong. We can actually say, yes, you're a judge, you took a bribe, now answer for that offense. You're a politician, you shot someone, answer for that offense. You're a school teacher who abused a child, answer for that offense. It doesn't matter. As long as I can see that you can stand on that other side and be held accountable for an ill, I think that would do a lot in shaping our characters as a society and just build the right ideals that we have to keep pursuing continually.
Thank you very much, Leah. Over to you, Rindy, and taking it off from where Leah left off on the issue of accountability and how it is very telling on the society. Someone once said that he's only going to believe that there is justice when he sees a judge in the prison. Speaking about it from the point of a lawyer who practices, and just as a way to wrap up the conversation this afternoon, how do you see accountability for everyone as a tool to ensuring that we begin to rebuild values and character?
In fact, let me taking it from earlier, advocacy to restore societal values in society and even in the kind of education which we put out. Now, accountability at this point and relating it with the topic we're discussing, that for the sake of justice, will be that, as she said, once someone is perceived to have done wrong, he should account and pay for his sins. Now, one of the biggest challenges that permeates the African judicial system is the fact that it seems to be too complex for a majority of the population, that the majority of the population really don't really understand it. And sometimes when you see someone stand trial and he's discharged and acquitted on a technical ground, the society, of course, naturally believes it is because of his position that he has been let off. So sincerely speaking, the strongest point of advocacy some of us are advocating is that the judicial systems amongst the African countries must, what will I call it, reduce themselves, open up themselves to a majority of the population. The laws must also be opened up to the understanding of a majority of the population. You cannot have an illiteracy level of 40, 60%, and all your laws are in English. And then 60% of the population does not understand what you're talking about. Now, secondly, of course, we know it's in the judicial balance. It's always been said, justice must not only be done, must be seen to be done. And if you permeate through the African society, you will find out that a majority of countries, maybe with the exception of Kenya and South Africa, there is no way that a court proceeding is covered. You don't get to see what happens in the court. You just see the man walking and tomorrow you hear that he has walked out. Of course, the perception of the poor man on the street is that because he has some money, he has been released, which of course brings us back to what you said earlier, whether we need to highlight the good things. Yes, there are a lot of bad things out there, but there are also good things. And the judicial system, that is the institution with the responsibility of protecting the most vulnerable, must open itself up to those vulnerable people to see that it is indeed making an attempt at protecting them from whatever it is that is being done against them. So sincerely speaking, accountability, that is all it is. But sincerely speaking, again, the system must be simplified to the level of a majority of the African man.
Thank you very much, Windy. Tirnam, in the UK, actually, not Canada. This is now a new day. HOJ Radio TV is here because it's about to turn a new page and ensure that we get back to the basics of life to understand what is right and what is wrong. Do you think that this can be done? Can we begin to rebuild a society that is structured and on whose foundation is character and value?
Absolutely. Not the easiest task though, because of course, if the foundation is faulty, we already know. And from where we are right now, it literally requires a complete overhaul of the entire building, because where we are right now, the level of the rods, the innovation, or just painting or something basic, it's completely, it's a 360 from scratch. So while it's doable, it is not the easiest of tasks. And yes, I absolutely agree, because that it can be done, especially with this platform, because of the values on which House of Justice is established. And not only is it by words, it is by action already. So people are always ready to align with House of Justice. When House of Justice calls, people answer, and the standard has already been set. There's a bar already. The expectations are high. So I believe that from the response to the posts and everything, you can see that people are looking forward to this, because the society is empty, is devoid of these important things. So you can see that House of Justice is strategically positioned to change these, to build these new values and mindsets. It's going to take a long while, but I believe that it is doable. And starting from now, from House of Justice Radio, from content, from clean, family-friendly content, and basic education on human rights, which is you can't believe how many not just people don't know their rights. Even here, talking to my fellow Black people, I realized that there's a lot of people that maybe the mindset they brought from home, I'm constantly rent, or somebody needs something. I'm like, you ask them, you're entitled to this, and they're like, I'm entitled to this, and I'm like, oh yes, you are. And then they just like, oh, I didn't know. You have no idea how much these things have been in us. So that reorientation is important, starting from programs where little children can know their rights, because now people in their 30s and 40s find themselves outside Nigeria and don't even believe that they're entitled to basic things till someone tells them, and then their eyes are open. Right. Or thanking the government for fixing the road and stuff. You know what I mean? So yes, House of Justice can do it.
Thank you very much, Tirno. I'm told that I have about half a minute. Prof, thank you for joining us. Professor Chidi Anselm-Odin Kalu is joining us also. Thank you very much, sir, for joining us. We can't see you though, but we hope you're seeing us. We are waving at you. Hi. So would you like to say hello before we sign out of the studio, please?
Congratulations, G. Congratulations, the HOJ team. All I have to ask is, can you please approve my application for membership of the House of Justice family? That application has been pending for too long, and I am now an orphan. I need a family.
But I thought you were leading us here.
But, you know, I'm so proud of what you're doing. You know, I could not miss today. I'm sorry I've been held up in so many things, but I just wanted to say congratulations. And may the Almighty be there with you and with the team as we embark on this journey. And I'll be there all the way. I'm not going anywhere, even if you don't approve my application.
Thank you very much, sir. So on this note, we'd like to thank Leah Nyambeki, who joined us from Kenya. Thank you very much, Leah. Thank you so much for the brilliant contribution. Thank you also to Olumide, who was here earlier on. Thank you, Tirnom Dogo, joining us from the UK. Thank you very much. And here in the studio, thank you to my sister and my friend, Grace Sim Auta. And thank you to the guy who always has the punchlines, Rindi Daku. And for calling it what it is. Thank you everyone for joining us from wherever it is that you were joining us. We would just like to say bye. And don't style. This is HOJ Radio TV, giving light to life. Bye for now.